Why is the account empty, Bennita? My mother's voice was terrifyingly calm while my dad shouted in the background, loud enough for me to hear through the phone. At that exact moment, I was sitting in my car outside my new apartment, staring at 5 failed withdrawal alerts from my bank app. Less than 12 hours earlier, I had quietly transferred every dollar I owned into a brand new account they didn't know existed, because deep down I knew if I moved out, they were going to try something. And they did. My parents drove to the bank the second they realized I was gone and tried to pull everything out of my savings account, money I'd been building since I was 16. But then the bank manager got on the line and said something that made my stomach drop. "Miss Bennita, your father is here claiming you're mentally unstable and unable to control your finances. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates." I actually stopped breathing for a second. Outside my windshield, the parking lot of my apartment complex was still almost empty. It was barely after 6 in the morning. Half my stuff was still packed into trash bags and cardboard boxes in the backseat because I'd moved out so fast the night before that I hadn't even unpacked yet. And somehow, my parents had already found the bank before they even tried calling me. I tightened my grip on the phone. What exactly did he say? The bank manager lowered his voice. I could hear muffled arguing behind him. He's insisting the transfer was made under emotional distress. He's requesting we freeze the account pending investigation. Then I heard my dad in the background. "That money belongs to this family." People were staring at them. I could tell from the way the manager kept apologizing between sentences. My mother suddenly came back on the line like nothing was wrong. "Bennita," she said softly, "you need to stop this right now before it gets worse." Before it gets worse. Not "are you okay?" Not "why did you leave?" Just the money. That was the moment something finally snapped into place for me. 3 nights earlier, I'd walked downstairs to get water and overheard my parents arguing in the kitchen. My dad sounded panicked. "If she leaves with that money, we're screwed." My mom told him to lower his voice. Then she said something I couldn't stop thinking about afterward. "She still trusts us. We can handle it once she's gone." At the time, I convinced myself they were talking about bills or another one of their financial problems. My parents were always temporarily short on money, even though they somehow kept buying new furniture and going out to expensive restaurants. But after hearing that conversation, I went to a completely different bank the next morning during my lunch break. And that same night, after my parents went to sleep, I transferred everything out of the account they still had access to except $73. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed watching the transfer process, feeling guilty for even doing it. Now, listening to my father scream at bank employees before sunrise, I realized I hadn't been paranoid enough. Then the manager said 6 words that made my stomach turn cold. "Miss Bennita, they're asking for police involvement. They want to call the police over my own money." I was still sitting in my car when I said it, staring at the apartment building in front of me like I'd forgotten where I was. The bank manager hesitated before answering. "Your parents are claiming the transfer was unauthorized because your mother is still listed on the account." Of course she was. That account had been opened when I was 17 because I needed a parent attached to it. After I turned 18, my mom kept saying we'd take care of the paperwork later. We never did, and honestly, I stopped thinking about it. Until now. My mother got back on the phone before I could respond. "You're making a massive mistake," she said quietly. "Your father is humiliated right now." I almost laughed at that. Humiliated. Not because they tried to empty my savings account behind my back, but because the money was gone before they could get to it. I leaned my head against the steering wheel and suddenly started replaying the last year differently. Every time I got extra hours at work, my parents somehow needed help with bills. Every bonus disappeared into temporary emergencies. When I mentioned moving out 6 months earlier, my dad literally laughed in my face. He said, "you wouldn't last half a year without us." Meanwhile, I was already paying nearly half the utilities in their house, while covering my own student loan payments. And the weirdest part, they never acted broke publicly. My mom kept posting photos from expensive restaurants. My dad bought a giant new TV during football season. They redid the living room furniture 2 months ago. But suddenly, over the past few weeks, they became obsessed with my bank account. "How much do you have saved now?" my mom asked one night out of nowhere. Then my dad asked if my direct deposit still went into that same old account. At the time it felt invasive. Now it felt planned. I pulled the phone away from my ear for a second when another call started buzzing through. It was my cousin Renee. Then another notification appeared. And another. Family group chat messages. My mother had already started telling people her version of the story. Then she said one sentence that made my chest tighten. "Bennita, your father already spoke to the bank investigator. You need to come home right now." "I'm not coming home," I said immediately. There was a long silence on the line after that, not shocked silence, cold silence. Then my mother hung up on me. The second the call ended, my phone exploded with messages. "Renee, why are your parents saying you drained a family account? My Aunt Denise, call your mother, she's hysterical. Another cousin, did something happen? Your dad's posting weird stuff online." I opened Facebook and instantly felt sick. My father had made a public post. "After everything we sacrificed, our daughter emptied shared family finances and disappeared overnight. No names, but everyone knew it was about me." The comments were already filling up with sympathy. "Praying for you guys. Kids today are unbelievable. Hope she comes to her senses." I stared at the screen in disbelief. They were turning me into the villain before I'd even unpacked my apartment. Then the bank called me back. This time the manager sounded much more serious. "Miss Bennita, I need to document something formally. Your parents came into the branch with printed account statements and withdrawal paperwork this morning." I sat up straighter. Withdrawal paperwork. Yes, they appeared to believe the funds were still available. So this wasn't emotional panic, this was planned. They woke up early, drove straight to the bank, and expected to leave with my savings. "Every dollar." The manager continued carefully. "When the transfer showed completed, your father became extremely agitated. He claimed you were being manipulated and demanded we reverse it immediately." Manipulated. Mentally unstable. Unauthorized. I suddenly remembered another piece of that argument I overheard in the kitchen. My dad packing near the refrigerator saying, "If she leaves with that money, we're done." At the time I thought he meant emotionally, like I was abandoning the family. Now I realized he may have meant financially. A horrible thought started forming in my head. What if they were deeper in debt than I knew? Before I could process it, Renee sent me another message. This time it was a photo. My parents were sitting inside the bank lobby. My dad's face was red with anger. The caption underneath read, "Bennita, what exactly did they try to take from you?" By the time I drove to the bank branch, my hands were shaking so badly I almost missed the entrance. My parents' SUV was still parked outside. I sat there for a moment gripping the steering wheel, watching customers walk in and out through the glass doors, wondering if I should leave before things got worse. But I was tired of running from conversations that somehow always became my fault. So I went inside. The second I stepped through the lobby doors, I heard my father's voice. "She's being manipulated by somebody," he snapped at the branch manager. "My daughter would never do this on her own." Several people turned to stare at me as I froze near the entrance. My mother spotted me first. Her expression changed instantly, relief for half a second, then anger. "There she is," she said sharply. "Bennita, tell them this is all a misunderstanding." I didn't move. The branch manager, a man probably in his 50s with tired eyes and a loosened tie, stepped between us immediately. "Miss Bennita," he said carefully, "would you mind speaking with me privately?" My father tried following us toward the offices in the back, but the manager stopped him. "No, sir, not you. That only made him angrier. Inside the office, the manager shut the door and lowered his voice. "I'm going to be direct with you," he said. "Your parents were extremely persistent this morning. They requested emergency access to the transferred funds and claimed you were under outside influence." I felt sick hearing it repeated out loud. Then he added something that completely changed the situation. "During the conversation, your father mentioned a de-need mortgage refinance." I frowned. "What does that have to do with me?" The manager hesitated. "He implied losing access to your savings created a serious financial issue for them." And suddenly, every strange thing over the past year connected at once. The constant requests for money, the panic when I mentioned moving out, the obsession with my account balance. They weren't trying to protect me. They were depending on me. Then the office door burst open. My father stormed inside before the manager could stop him. "You think you can just abandon your family," he shouted, "after everything we spent raising you?" Customers outside the office were openly staring now. My mother started crying in the hallway, loud enough for everyone to hear. And then the branch manager said something that made the entire room go silent. "Sir, attempting to access funds through false mental incapacity claims can carry serious legal consequences." My father's face changed instantly. For the first time that entire morning, my father had nothing to say. He just stood there staring at the branch manager, while my mother's crying suddenly became a lot quieter outside the office door. The manager looked at me instead. "Miss Bennita," he said, "I strongly recommend you remove all remaining shared authority from your previous accounts today." I nodded automatically, still trying to process what was happening. Then he slid a folder across the desk. "These were left out during your parents' conversation with us earlier." Inside were copies of overdue notices, credit card balances, past due mortgage statements, a foreclosure warning. I felt my stomach drop harder with every page. The numbers were massive, way bigger than anything I imagined. And suddenly, I understood why my parents had panicked the second I moved out. My savings weren't just money to them anymore. They were survival. The manager explained that during their argument in the lobby, my father accidentally admitted they'd been denied a second mortgage refinance because of existing debt obligations. Creditors were calling constantly. Payments were already overdue. And somehow, without ever directly telling me, my parents had built an entire backup plan around my bank account. That was the real reason my mother never removed herself from it after I turned 18. Not laziness. Not forgetfulness. Access. The worst part wasn't even hearing how much debt they had. It was realizing they'd watched me work myself exhausted for years, while quietly viewing my savings as theirs if things ever collapsed. Every late shift, every skipped vacation, every freelance project I took on after work. They knew exactly how hard I worked for that money. And they still drove to the bank before sunrise trying to take it. My father finally spoke again, but his voice sounded different now, smaller. "We were going to put it back." The branch manager didn't even react. Instead, he calmly explained that false claims regarding mental instability and attempted unauthorized access could trigger fraud investigations if pursued further. That ended the conversation immediately. My parents left the bank separately. My father stormed out first without looking at me. My mother paused near the entrance like she wanted to say something emotional or convincing, but in the end, she only asked one question. "So you're really leaving us like this? Not are you okay? Not can we fix this? Just that." I didn't answer. Over the next few weeks, the entire family slowly learned the truth. The hidden debts, the unpaid loans, the fact that relatives had already lent my parents money they never paid back. People who originally blamed me started apologizing after hearing what actually happened at the bank. Especially after my father's public meltdown became impossible to defend. The bank permanently removed my mother's access from every connected account. Fraud documentation was added internally in case further claims were attempted. And for the first time in my life, my finances belonged only to me. A few months later, I was fully settled into my apartment and preparing to start graduate school. One night, while organizing paperwork at my kitchen table, I got a voicemail notification from my mother. Her voice sounded softer than I'd ever heard it. "We should talk," she said quietly. "We're still family." I listened to it once. Then I deleted it. After that, I opened my banking app out of pure habit and looked at the balance sitting untouched in my new account. Every dollar was still there. This time, nobody else could reach it.